Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, I am an IT professional who loves to share the knowledge and a self-learner on DevOps, cloud-related technology, and the certifications related to the cloud or DevOps. Kindly do go through my playlist, and if you find it a useful content, to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever a new video is uploaded on my YouTube channel. Also, do share my YouTube channel link with your friends and teammates to get the knowledge on DevOps and cloud related technology. So without any delay, let's move to the today's video. And today's video is an hot topic in an IT world, which is DevOps versus SRE. Should I move my career into a DevOps, or should I switch my career to the site reliability engineer? Also, if you are fresher into an IT world, should I get into a DevOps engineer, or should I get into an SRE in SRE world? That's where the question is. And to clear that doubt, in today's video, we are going to learn these two worlds of IT. And the agenda for today's video is: what is DevOps? What is SRE? What are the tasks performed by DevOps engineer? What are the SRE tasks? What are the goals as an site reliability engineer? And finally, we are going to see the summary of these two worlds to get a better understanding and help you to choose your career between DevOps and SRE. So without any delay, let's get started. So let's first learn what is DevOps. So the DevOps is the combination of development and operations in a very simple term. DevOps is not only about tools, it has three important components, which is people, process, and tools. It is more about people on how they collaborate together. So in a very short summary, DevOps is not a methodology. It is a mindset where people collaborate together to achieve a common goal or deliver a product. So for a DevOps engineer, and how the DevOps engineer works, the DevOps people should be focusing on continuous development. The second is continuous integration. Third is continuous deployment. And the fourth is continuous testing. And the last and important is continuous monitoring. So which all tools can you learn when you are working on continuous development, continuous integration, or continuous deployment, or continuous testing and continuous monitoring? So let's start from continuous monitoring. If you want to monitor your infrastructure or your code or your application, then you choose Prometheus or Negos as one of your monitoring tool. Moving to the testing, the Selenium is a best thing. If you want to get a continuous deployment, then Jenkins is your go-to to learn. Continuous integration, you can go with a GitHub. And for continuous development, there are lots of tools like VS Code. You can use lots of editors to get your code developed and then integrate it with the GitHub, a common repository. So that's what the DevOps basically focuses on. If you see on the right side, it is code, plan, development, code, plan, test, and build. That's how the cycle works. And at the same time, once the code is built, then you release it, deploy it, operate it, and monitor it. So the DevOps basically focuses on not only building the code, but at the same time releasing it, deploying it, testing it, and monitoring it, so that from the failures you can learn and develop the better code. Now, let's move to the SRE world. What is an SRE? The SRE stands for System Site Reliability Engineer. In some firms, people call it as System Reliability Engineer, and in some other firms, people call it as a Site Reliability Engineer. And what is Site Reliability Engineer? The Site Reliability Engineer is the collaboration between the software engineering and system operations. What is the responsibility of an SRE? As an SRE, what responsibility you hold on your shoulders? So SRE's responsibilities includes identifying and preventing the problems that can cause the downtime. So your main goal is to make sure your applications or systems are always up and running with a very minimal downtime if needed, but you should avoid a downtime. So downtime can be needed for maintenance activity or any infrastructure activities, which can be upgrade of the infrastructure, patching on your operating systems, on your applications, systems, etc. Moving to the fourth point, SRE team is also responsible for how the code is deployed, configured, and monitoring. So that is one of the I would say the responsibility of an SRE team to see how the code is deployed. It shouldn't be that every week you're deploying some code which can break the system reliability, right? So the responsibility is how the code is deployed, how it is configured, and how it is monitored, right? SRE team is to operate the application in production, mission criticals, and do whatever is necessary to keep the site up and running. So SRE team is also responsible to operate the applications in production environment, which are mission critical applications, and to make sure they are always up and running. An SRE team is responsible for the availability, latency, performance, efficiency, change management, monitoring, emergency response, and the capacity planning of their services. So that's one of the responsibility of an as a system reliability engineer or a site reliability engineer. Now, let's understand what are day-to-day activities of as a DevOps engineer. So the DevOps engineer task is setting up a continuous integration and continuous delivery pipeline, which is nothing but our favorite CI/CD pipeline. Continuous integration, you can use Git, and continuous delivery, you can use Jenkins. Also, one of another important tasks for the DevOps engineer is setting up an infrastructure, which is provisioning and configuring. For provisioning, you can use Terraform as one of the tool, and for configuring, you can use Ansible, right? So once you have provisioned the infrastructure, now you need to configure. That means install the softwares on it so that your application or your system gets in an operable condition. The third important point is removing the bottleneck, that is identifying the manual handshakes and work with Dev, QA, and all other stakeholders in an organization to remove them. So that's one of the tasks for the DevOps engineer. The fourth important is automation, right? Whenever we talk about DevOps, automation comes into our mind, and that's an important task for a DevOps engineers to identify wherever there is a possibility to automate the process so that they can focus on other critical activities rather than focusing on monotonous or repeatable jobs, right? So if there is a possibility of automating it, let's go ahead and automate that. The fifth important task is troubleshooting and resolving the code bugs in different environments like production, UAT, SIT, etc. So one of the other important tasks is DevOps is responsible of writing a code and building it, but at the same time you need to learn from your mistakes so that you can deliver the code in a better way and fix your and make your code a minimal bug code or a zero bug code. But that's not possible, right? Every time whenever you develop any product, you will have some bugs and your engine keeps up running. You learn from each and every deliverables or from your mistakes, and you try to build a better code. But troubleshooting and resolving, that's one of the important tasks of the DevOps engineer. Another important task is identifying and deploying the cybersecurity measures by continuously performing vulnerability assessment and the risk management. Right. So one of the important tasks for the DevOps and engineer is when they are building the systems or building the code, they should keep in mind to design a system in such way that you are able to identify the vulnerabilities and the risks associated it before you get up into a security breach zone, right? So that's one of the important tasks, and which is followed by my last point is securing the infrastructure and the applications. So if you are planning to get into a DevOps engineer, so these are the important tasks you should have in your mind and prepare yourself to learn or be a good DevOps engineer. So moving to the next topic is the SRE tasks. What are the important tasks for which the site reliability engineer is responsible for? So let's go to that. Availability. One of the important tasks for the SRE is to make sure their systems are always available. Latency. Third is performance, efficiency, change management. SRE team plays an important role when any changes goes into the production from the lower environment. They need to be part of the change management process. Another important topic is monitoring and alerting. SRE is responsible for setting up the alerts and monitoring the infrastructure and the applications. And how can you do that? Setting up and monitoring alerts, there are various tools available in the market. One is New Relic, Datadog, you have App Dynamics, you have Dynatrace, you have ITRA Genius, you have Splunk for your log monitoring. So lots of tools are available which does this monitoring and helps you to get a proactive alertness before anything breaks. And the other task is emergency response. So if in the midnight, if say your system goes down and a severity 1 or a P priority 1 incident gets raised, that's where you need to basically a response to that emergency, right? Because the system is down at the mid of the business hours, which since your application is a global application, it can be down and you are responsible to have the response to that emergency. Incident response. So whenever any user queries or any system related queries comes, you need to respond to that incident, right? And the most important is the capacity planning. You need to come up with your future, how my system will work down the line of 6 months, how much servers I need, how much infrastructure is needed from the database perspective, from the operating perspective, and couple of other things are there where you need to consider whenever you're doing a capacity planning, right? Because you're at the end of the day, the data is growing day by day, and you need to basically have a proper capacity planning to handle that data. I hope until now you got an idea of what is the DevOps, what is SRE, what are the tasks DevOps has a DevOps engineer you need to perform, or what are the tasks as an SRE you need to be performed. Now, moving to another important area is SRE goals. So one of the important goal for the as an SRE is make deployment easier, improve or maintain the uptime. The third one is establish the visibility into an application performance. And how can you do that? By having the monitoring and alerting in place and the matrices, which is very important. Metrics help you to basically know how your application is performing over a period of time. Set an SLI, which is a service level indicator, and SLO, which is service level objectives and error budgets. Another important goal is increase speed by assuming the calculated risks. You need to understand that if you are deploying your code very frequently, after every 2 days, 3 days, you need to calculate the risks for that, how whether this deployment can impact my system reliability, system performance, etc. Eliminate the toil, right? Identifying the areas where you can reduce the toil, which can be a process improvement, which can be writing a few lines of code, which can help you to automate your day-to-day activity or a manual times. But make into consideration how much time you are spending every day, right? So if it is just going to be 15 minutes, putting so much time into automating that effort will not help, right? And the last is reduce the cost of failure to a lower new feature cycle time. So at the end of the so one of the important SRE goal is that we need to basically, okay, we are deploying the code every week or once in a month. Now with this code, it's going to cause any failure? Yes or no? That's where we need to understand, and we need to reduce that cost of failure, right? So that's one of the important goal of an SRE. I hope by now you got an idea about what I am talking about, and it will help you to take a decision whether I should get my career switch as a DevOps engineer on an SRE. Don't go. We have another slide where I'm going to basically summarize what I have talked about and a bonus point on it. So let's move to that. So friends, let's now understand how these two entities take the approach to handle a particular situation as an DevOps engineer and site reliability engineer. So let's get started to the first point. So the DevOps basically approach is to reduce the organization silos. When we talk about silos, before DevOps, there was always the not a correct idea about what is going on, what tasks the development team is working, and what is expected from the operations end when we deliver to the product. So there was, both the teams were not sure about what is going on and how much what is expected as an end result. So with DevOps, we have reduced the silos between an development team and an operations team. Moving to the next approach is, from the DevOps perspective, is how to handle the failure. So the DevOps basically approach is accept the failure as a normal. So I would say in a short summary, learn from your failure and try to implement what you have learned in the next delivery. The third approach is how to handle the changes, right? So DevOps basically wants to implement the gradual changes. That means deploy the changes or release the features of your system or application in pieces rather than releasing a big whole feature in one shot. Let's cut down that and release small features into the production environment, which will basically have low bugs. The other important approach of the DevOps is automation. So identify the areas where you can automate the things and reduce the manual efforts to basically do that thing. The other approach is focus. So the DevOps basically wants to create an environment where they have the control on that environment, which is sometimes good, sometimes not good, right? Because the production environment is usually handled by production team or the site reliability engineer, right? So they have the DevOps people with have always a mentality, a focus that I should have a more control in handling the things, which is not good. The other approach where DevOps basically is measure everything. So now the focus is whatever I have released in production, let's measure that. And how can we measure that? Because there are multiple tools available in the market, and the focus of measuring the stuff which DevOps team focuses is deployment frequency. How frequently we are deploying the changes in production, how much time it takes to restore the service if it goes down because of some bugs encountered into the production. The lead time for the changes, how much time it takes to deploy that particular change into production, and at the same time the change failure rate. We also want to make sure that whatever we are deploying in production is implemented successfully, not as a failure, right? The last important thing which I would like to add as a bonus point is that the average salary of a DevOps engineer in United States is 75,562 as of May 01, 2023. And this stats I have got from salary.com or hire.com. So clearing it from the first instance as well. So now let's understand what are the approaches and what we have discussed from the DevOps perspective, how SRE handles that. So the the first approach is share the ownership with everyone. So SRE has the approach that I am okay to share the ownership, be it with a development team, QA, operations, or stakeholders. That's the main goal of an SRE, which is ownership. The second approach to handle the failure which SRE uses is service level indicator and the service level objectives. So when we talk about service level indicator, it measures the failures per request over a time. And when we talk about service level objective, which is nothing but a SLO, represents the success percentage of SLI, which is service level indicators. The another approach which SRE focuses is the use of 4 signals, namely traffic, latency, saturation, errors, to measure the progress. So when we talk about the traffic, how much traffic is hitting my website, how much time it takes to get a response if a person hits my website. Saturation is basically whether I'm able to handle that much load, and the errors, whenever a change is gone into a production, whether my system is reliable to handle that error or not. So those are some of the I would say the SRE basically uses to measure the progress of your system or your application. SRE also focuses to create a highly reliable and ultra scalable applications. When we talk about high reliable is if my changes are going into production, how reliable my system is to handle that change. So that's one of the focus areas of SRE. At the same time, whether my system is scalable to handle the load, right, which you can use it using a cluster environment, or you can also opt for a cloud provider where the mantra is pay as you go. So whenever you think the load is going to be happen, you basically scale your system, pay it for that scalable period of time, and then go back to the normal. So that's one of the focus area. Uh, Another area of the SRE or the approach is to reduce the cost of failure while implementing or moving changes quickly into production. So SRE goal is to make sure that the changes which you are moving into production does not gets into a downtime of my system, which can be a failure, right? So their main task is to make sure that the system is always up and running with a zero downtime or a minimal downtime as and when required. And the last important bonus point is if you want to be a SRE engineer, the average salary of SRE engineer in US is $106,548 as of May 01, 2023. And these stats I have got from salary.com, Glassdoor, as well as hire.com. So these are the roughly figures, but it would vary depending upon the location and the work where you are getting the opportunity, whether it's in the downtown or a remote area, or state where there is a tax free, right? So don't think, but this is an average salary a DevOps engineer versus a site reliability engineer earns as of May 01, 2023. I hope this site was useful. And one important bonus point which I would like to say is SRE and the DevOps are two sides of the same coin. Whether you choose your career into a DevOps or whether you choose your career as a site reliability engineer, you are going to work on all these tasks and the approaches, right? So you would have a DevOps team in the organization. At the same time, there would be an existence of a site reliability team. So both teams needs to work together to achieve the common product, or I would say the product which we want to deliver to the client, with a mindset where everyone agrees on that approach and deliver the product with a less bug, or I would say a bug free product, and highly reliable, highly scalable, etc. So I hope this video was helpful and it will help you to take a decision whether I should be switching my career as a DevOps engineer, or I should switch my career as an SRE engineer. Thank you and take care.